What's up everyone and welcome back. Registered Dietitian here, Kara Corey. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you'd like to stick around. You guys can also hit that post notification bell so you know each and every time I upload. For today's video, I'm going to do somewhat of a rapid fire dietitian Q&A that I like to call bite-sized bits. I took to the Instagrams to ask you guys what questions you were just burning to ask a dietitian. So make sure you follow me on Instagram as well if you want to kind of participate in these Q&A type deals. That's usually where I do it. So we're going to jump right in. I'm going to answer as many questions for you guys as possible. First question is a great one. If it fits your macros versus a meal plan, does eating clean really make a big difference if the macros are tracked? Most of you may know that I've followed a meal plan in the past, and I've also done if it fits your macros. I'm a big believer in not doing meal plans. Reason being is just to tell someone this is what you have to eat every single day for the rest of your life just is not a sustainable approach, number one. Number two, there's no variability in your diet, so you are likely going to be missing out on tons of nutrients by eating the same stuff every day. That might be okay for some people, but it does get boring and hard to stick with. Now, in terms of if it fits your macros, if you're eating clean, does it matter one way or another? I kind of hate the word clean eating, even though I was a user of the word several years ago. There is no true definition of what clean eating is, and it almost kind of gives you that negative connotation that other foods are dirty or undesirable or not healthy for you. So I try to not even use that word. However, in terms of utilizing if it fits your macros and following a macros-based approach, it is important in the grand scheme of things to make sure you're getting a variety of foods. So healthy foods, non-healthy foods as well, because it's about finding a sustainable approach that works for you guys to help get you on the right track with your weight loss goals and to really make it feel more easy and to make it feel just something that you can stick with that's part of your life that you don't have to really think about too much, if that makes sense. That's truly the goals, right? Is to kind of get to that balance point. Now, if we're talking aesthetically in terms of your goals, at the end of the day, if the calories and the macros are all the same, is it going to make a difference? I think that's often a big question. Whether you're filling all your macros with Pop-Tarts all day long, which was kind of like the thought, or whether or not you're eating, a variety of healthier foods. Will it make a difference in your physique? And it absolutely will. So the foods that you eat, regardless if you're hitting the same macro split or the calories at the end of the day, can make a difference in aesthetically how the body looks. But above and beyond that, beyond the aesthetics, what it's going to make a difference in is your health. So regardless if you're someone who's striving to get bigger delts or to lose a little bit of your love handles, to get shredded quads, you ultimately still need to be considering your health and what is going to make you feel good on a daily basis and in terms of your lifespan. What's going to be the best for you to be putting into your body? Because what you're putting into your body today, regardless if you're 18 or 40, it will make a difference in your health, the longevity of your lifespan, and how you feel on a day-to-day basis. That was not a rapid fire answer whatsoever. So what's your opinion on the HAES movement, which is health at every size? As a dietitian, are you for it or against it? Not sure if this person just watched my last video. I kind of briefly mentioned HAES, and at this point, I do feel like I need to do a little more research. I am Switzerland. I'm neutral. I'm staying neutral at this point in time because I don't think I'm not against it, and I'm also not sitting here saying I'm a HAES dietitian. I don't like the labeling. I don't think it's necessary. And honestly, there's stuff with HAES that I totally support and implement myself as a dietitian. And then there's other things that are out there with how dietitians are using it maybe that I find confusing and I disagree with. So I'm kind of, I don't know if that makes me neutral or not, but that's my stance on where I'm at with it. Do you have any advice for aspiring dietitians? Yes, I do, because so many people want to get into this field and I think don't really understand not that they don't understand the job opportunities that are out there, but they don't understand what's required to become a registered dietitian. So what a lot of people see, especially nowadays with social media, is you see a lot of registered dietitians with their own private practices, working in the field of athletics, working with eating disorders, doing those types of things. And that's great, and that's totally fine if that's ultimately your goal as a career, being a dietitian. However, be aware of what is required to actually sit for the RD exam. It's not just about the glamour of being a sports dietitian. You have to work with all different types of populations of people. You have to work with all different types of medical states. You have to work in all different areas of nutrition. So there's tons of different areas that dietitians can work with. So if you're getting into the field because your sole interest is only in one particular field, you may struggle a bit because there's so much more to the actual academic piece of it in terms of what you have to learn and know in school, as well as the internship hours that are required and are extremely intensive. So what I've seen is a lot of people go into the field of dietetics in terms of academics, and then they end up quitting and switching their education path because they don't want to do what it takes to become an RD. And yes, there are other paths you can take to call yourself a nutritionist, which isn't really a true defined word. There's other paths you can take to increase your knowledge of nutrition, and I think that's where a lot of people fall off. So be aware that there's a lot required to become a dietitian. My advice to you is spend some time talking with the colleges that you're interested in, talk to them about what the program actually requires of you, and work with dietitians who aren't in private practice. Work with dietitians in nursing homes, in food service, in non-for-profit community agencies, Meals on Wheels, different places like that where dietitians do work, because I have seen a lot of dietitians that end up not sitting for the exam because they have no interest in any part of that. So I hope that helps. There is absolutely nothing rapid fire about this rapid fire Q&A. Do you get tired of everyone's opinions of nutrition? I've been an RDN for 4 years now. Tired of it. Oh, I feel you, sister, on this. I've been an RD now since 2005? 2005, I think. What is the year? It's 2018. Holy crap, I've been a dietitian for like 13 years. Yeah, I guess I think it bothered me more so earlier on in my career more than it does now. You just kind of learn that this is part of your role as a registered dietitian, is that everybody and their brother has an opinion on nutrition. It's almost like a religion for some people, and conversations can get really intense. They can get confrontational, and sometimes you're just not going to change someone's views on things. So I've just kind of learned that that isn't my place necessarily. If it's not harming someone's health, my goal is not to be a confrontational RD and change everyone's opinions on everything, but it's more so to just kind of provoke thought, maybe give my side of things and kind of give them some additional considerations. And you just kind of learn to tune out the rest because you have to. There's just opinions everywhere about nutrition. So as much as I always want to jump in and give my opinion on every conversation, I've learned over the years it doesn't always help. It doesn't get me any further, and so I only kind of speak up if I really have to and have something of value I can provide to the conversation and maybe give them a little bit more thought. But sure does get irritating. Okay, the next question says, do you think certain foods contribute to acne? I think that's a really great question. It's something I've considered over the years experiencing acne. However, any dermatologist I've worked with, kind of busts that myth and says that is not the case. But I do know that certain people swear by certain foods have made a difference in their skin. And I do think it makes sense that if you're feeding your body junk, if you're constantly putting crap into your body, that could certainly reflect in your skin. However, I want to sit here and say that I am not someone that's constantly putting crap in my body, and I still struggle with acne and hormonal acne, and it also can be genetic and has ran in my own family. So I don't think that it's the case with food necessarily. the bulk of the time, but I don't want to discredit and say that if someone knows that they omitted dairy from their diet and that was the number one cause of their flare-ups, there very well could be sensitivities there that may trigger certain things. In terms of the actual science and nutrition behind it, I haven't actually seen that validated, but maybe there is research out there to support it. So if you guys know of any, be sure to share it below, but I haven't actually seen that that is 100% guarantee. What do you know about the body fat set point, and do you think it can be changed? I think there's a lot of validity to your body's natural set point. I do think we all kind of live in a place where our body gets very comfortable with the amount of fat stores that we have, and your body will kind of work against you at times hormonally when you're trying to go through a weight loss phase to keep you in that set point, that desirable point, which is often where we can struggle with plateaus. So I do think there is validity to that. I think that's where for many of us we can get easily frustrated when we have to start either working harder or maybe change our approach to get through the plateau. And that's where consistency is really going to be required of that person. Do I think it can be changed? Yes, I do, actually. I think I've seen it personally for myself over the years. My body's set point has adjusted, and I think it will adjust for many of us based on what stage of life we're in terms of our age. I think it's going to adjust based on some of those other external factors, those exogenous things coming into our bodies, such as medications, different supplements, things like that, that can certainly alter your body's hormones, possibly alter your body's natural set point, exercise levels, and I think, spending time changing your workout routine, maybe if you're someone that's gained a muscle over the years, I think your body's set point is going to change. So I think it can be done, and it is kind of interesting and just something to be aware of if you're not familiar with that theory. It kind of helps you feel a little bit better when you rationally think about it. If you're someone who is trying to lose weight and you're struggling and you're like, wait a second, I'm doing everything right, and now I'm even doing things a little bit more aggressive, or I'm cutting more calories, or I'm working out a little bit harder, and it's still taking me a long time. Why can't I get through this place or this plateau? And that's where the body's set point is probably, it's kind of working against you. It's like, whoa, slow down, honey. We won't keep these fat stores up in here. We want to keep you good to go in case of famine. And so I do think it makes sense, and you just have to go, okay, this isn't something I'm doing wrong. This is just something I have to work with and continue to be consistent with. Did you have to do a lot of volunteer work prior to your dietetic internship? No, I didn't do any volunteer work prior to my internship. However, I went through what was called the coordinated internship program, which was a blessing. I am so fortunate that I was in the coordinated program. So what that meant, and I'll define it just because not a lot of colleges offer the coordinated program anymore. I went to Syracuse University. They do not offer it anymore. However, once you get into if you apply for a coordinated program, what that means is I completed my dietetic internship along with my schooling. So when I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I was also eligible to sit for my exam as a registered dietitian. It was super grueling because I was at an internship 8 hours a day, and then I was taking classes after that. It was a lot to manage, and a lot of programs don't do it because it is just so much on people, and a lot of people who are coming through the program, like, right out of high school, you're very young, you're not as mature yet, it's a lot to handle. But for me, that built in my internship along with my classes. So I didn't have to apply necessarily for an internship. For those of you that have to apply for an internship, at this stage, you need to get in a lot of experience, because the more volunteer experience you have prior to applying for an internship, you're just going to look more desirable to people. As an employer, as someone who has managed a nutrition department, desirable interns to me would be interns that have shown that they can work in multiple different areas of nutrition. That shows me that they are mature to handle it. It shows me that they're well-rounded, that they have a host of different experiences. And the more experiences that you have under your belt, the better you can interview. And interviewing sometimes will make or break whether or not you get accepted into an internship. Like I said, it's very cutthroat. The amount of dietetic students that are becoming eligible for internships, there aren't enough internships to actually place you. So many students will have to take a year off, they'll have to work and wait and reapply to the internship program. It can be very, very stressful. So your best way to go is to get as much experience as possible, build your resume, it's never too soon, and that will just make you more well-rounded and more competitive when it comes to applying for internships. Next question asks, why do Victoria's Secret's models cut out dairy even before their show, even if they aren't intolerant? That's kind of a cute question because it's very similar to bodybuilding, where you hear a lot of prep coaches or competitors cutting out dairy like the week before their show. The general thought is, even if you're not intolerant, the possibility of bloat. And for most people, if you're going to be half naked on a stage, you just don't want to chance it. I'm going to be honest, I've done preps both ways. I've done it where I have cut out dairy the week of to be safe, and other times I haven't cut it out and I haven't noticed a difference. So it really depends on the individual. I think the leaner you get for something as extreme as a bodybuilding show, you start to notice what things like bloat you or not, because you're just at these extreme stages of body fat percent. So like things that never would have bloated you before will bloat you now. So I would imagine that is the same thought process with a Victoria's Secret's model. They want to go out there. They don't want to be worried about being bloated and farty and gassy. They want to look their best, feel their best. So it's probably just to be safe. Any tips on going from a weight loss phase to a maintenance phase? Yeah, I would say that can sometimes be like the hardest transition for many of us, because it can be really easy when we're in the weight loss phase and you're seeing the weight decrease on the scale, or even if you're not, it's just a little bit more black and white, easier to be a little bit more strict. But when you want to lessen the reins and just maybe maintain your weight, that's when it can be a little bit challenging. What I would say is, don't change too much of what you're doing while you're in that initial transition phase. So what I mean by that is, if you were someone that was tracking macros during your cutting phase, continue to track macros going into your maintenance phase, at least for a period of time. That's how I did it, and I found I was very successful with that. I continue to track my macros going into my maintenance phase, and now here I am. Sometimes I track, sometimes I don't, and I'm maintaining beautifully. Not saying that always works well for everyone, but I just wouldn't change too much too quick. So if you're a macro tracker, keep that going. Going into your maintenance phase, I think the goal for a lot of us is either one, to reduce the cardio that we're doing possibly in hopes of maintaining, or two, maybe starting to add some food back in there and get the macros up, eat a little bit more in hopes of maintaining. So both of those are areas that you want to play around with, ideally, and see how you respond. So my best advice there is to do one or the other at a time and do it slowly. So going into week 1 of your maintenance period, if you want to cut back on a cardio session, maybe you cut back on cardio first, and then the following week, if you want to increase your macros a little bit, maybe you start to bump your carbs back up, your fat back up a little bit, maybe you start adding in like a refeed day. Just do things slowly and thought out, take note of how your body is responding, and that I think will be your best route to being able to maintain and not feeling like, okay, I've cut down to these calories or whatever you're doing, and now where do I go from here? I don't want to stay here at these calories. And oftentimes what people see is you can add back in calories, you can cut back on your cardio sessions and be able to maintain, but you do have to be a bit consistent and kind of mindful with that approach. How to fit in drinking or don't do it at all. I personally do fit in drinking on occasion. I think it's unrealistic to tell most people not to do it at all. However, you do need to be aware that alcohol does metabolize differently than, fat, carbs, and protein. So if you're, depending on what your goals are, if you're someone who's really trying to lose weight, that may be the one place that if you manipulate that and cut it out, you might see great results. I have seen this with a lot of folks that I've worked with where alcohol is the one thing kind of getting in the way of them seeing any progress. They work super hard in the gym, they eat really great, but they're drinking every single weekend. That in itself can be the one thing that's causing you to feel a little sluggish, lethargic, maybe bloated, and not have, the physique you're desiring to have. Also, there's obviously health implications there too, depending on how much you're drinking and what you're drinking. However, shout out to my red wine drinkers. We do know that adding in some red wine once a week or twice a week can be great for inflammation. It's actually anti-inflammatory. So that is one area of alcohol that actually has great health benefit to it. I myself save drinking for special occasions for the most part, unless I'm just wanting a glass of red wine. So just be careful with the frequency of it, but yes, you can fit it in. Be mindful of what you're consuming. There are better options that can be made when it comes to drinking alcohol in terms of the impact with, some of the super high sugar drinks versus the ones that aren't so high sugar. So just kind of be aware of that. I am a dietitian that tells you can make all things fit, so that is kind of part of my answer. This is a really good question. I get this a lot. What if I'm always too full to finish my macros? Do I force it down? This really depends on the person, I think, because as a coach, I'm going to answer from a coach's perspective, or a dietitian perspective, I should say. When I'm working with someone and we are tracking macros and I give them macros to follow, for me as a coach, I can best assess how to move forward or how to make changes if you're doing what I ask of you consistently. So that might be asking you to eat more than what you're used to. And that might feel weird, because why are you going to eat more when you don't feel like you're hungry? And it kind of plays with that, you're going against that intuitive eating thought process. However, if you're working with a coach, I only know how to help you if you're doing exactly what I ask of you and really seeing how the body responds. And I also want to add in there too, so many people do undereat. They undereat and they get in this kind of stuck place where they can't see results unless they go super extreme. So sometimes it is good to force yourself to eat all those macros and see what happens. And I'm not saying doing it for 2 months and then all of a sudden you've gained 10 pounds, but at least give it a week or so to kind of strategize on how to best meet those macros. Maybe there's better food choices you can be making during the day to get to those macros without feeling so overly full. So strategize from that perspective and at least give it a shot and see how it feels. A lot of people get really scared when they see higher macros, thinking they're just all of a sudden going to blow up. I promise you, eating consistently at higher macros for a week, you probably aren't going to blow up. Oftentimes what I see is a lot of people lose weight because they're not used to eating consistently whatsoever. So focus on getting those macros in consistently and just see how your body responds. If you're someone who's just following intuitive eating, though, you're following an approach where you're more so just listening to your body instead. So this question doesn't really apply to that. But there are people that I know who struggle to eat enough, and they just don't have that internal cue to tell them they need to eat as much as they do need to eat. And that's where, you just need to follow your numbers, dude. Jason, and get in enough macros throughout the day, because you will get so busy working or playing video games that you'll forget to eat. So it really depends on the person and the situation, but hopefully that was helpful. I think we're going to stop there for the Q&A. If you guys want to see a part 2, I did get a ton more questions, so I could do another video if you guys want to see that. Let me know if this video was helpful. I hope you guys got some good little tidbits in here, and hopefully I busted some myths. Hopefully I busted a move. Hopefully you guys found some valuable information in this video. Be sure to leave a comment below what you found most interesting, and I will see you guys in the next video.